what's up YouTube? Welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel, and we are here once again talking about the V-Card TCG because 16 hours ago at the time of recording they've released a gigantic update to the game, and so let's dig in and see if they have truly saved this game. Is it going to be actually worth trying to play, invest in, and explore? Well, let's find out. Let's first get you up to speed on everything that you need to know about all the different changes that have happened so far. We've seen a major redesign of pretty much every single card, and we'll get into that in a minute, but you can see there's different ability text here, and over on the White Knight card you can see support boost. They've changed card typings and stuff like that, but we'll get into that in more detail. First thing, let's talk about the rules changes. This is a screenshot directly from their rules page website. And a few things have changed. The main thing is that you must always start a round by playing a power level 8 card. So if you do not have a power level 8 card, you are forced to mulligan, and there is a new mulligan rule. With your power level 8 card, you can evolve it, text they use, into a power level 9 card, and then later into a power level 10 card. When you do this, each time it will allow you to draw extra cards. We'll elaborate on that later. We also have some of the more redesigning type stuff here. So the support cards are now relegated to 3 separate types, which is going to help you understand how and when you can use them. I think is a great upgrade because it was really murky and confusing before. And I think that goes really well. Next is card effects. So before, they basically lazily designed it so that there was only like a finite, like 4 or 5 different abilities that a power level 8 could have, and then it was evenly distributed amongst all of them regardless of color and type and stuff. And so now they have these specific keywords that explain when something can be done. So like snap is basically immediately when you play the card, or at reveal at the beginning of a setup. Lock is the same as tap in Magic the Gathering, exhaust in a lot of other games. Passive is just something that's always happening and stuff like that. And then we have the 3 support card types like we just saw before, which is basically just reiterating how it's now split into 3 different types. So let's follow on to kind of the summary of the rule changes. And I already mentioned you must open with a power level 8. This is the same as Pokemon, where unless if you have a basic Pokemon, you don't have a hand you can play and you must mulligan. And the new mulligan rule is basically going to be drawing in your hand of 7. So very similar to Pokemon TCG all of a sudden. And now combat happens automatically after 6 turns. They've basically removed that. And the thing we talked a lot about last time in the last video was the condottiere type combat, where you're bluffing as to whether you're going to commit more cards to something or not, or whether you're going to yield and force your opponent to overcommit more resources. They've removed that, which was arguably the one good, interesting part about the game as it existed. They've removed that from the game. Instead, now combat happens specifically after you've performed 6 actions, and you're kind of looking forward to exactly that moment. You're like, how can I efficiently play my things to get the best combat, knowing exactly when it's going to happen? We have power level 8, or just Pokemon, evolve into power level 9 and then power level 10, but the power level 9s and 10s still have no abilities or do anything. It's just a bigger number. You also now have backstage VTubers, which is the same as the bench in the Pokemon TCG, and interacts in the same way as the bench, where you can retreat into them. Now, they had a supporter card previously. I don't know if it's the same, but you would search your deck for a different VTuber to swap with the one that you have that's active now. And it is now a bit more irrelevant because you have the ability to retreat into a VTuber that you have backstage to have a better type matchup. Again, this is literally just, it feels completely ripped off the Pokemon TCG, but at least it has more mechanics than it did before. And then one last thing is that cards can lock, which is turn sideways to activate certain things. Yeah. All right, but perhaps the most interesting thing is they've added new color typing specific keywords. So fuel, for example, will only ever show up on red cards, on fire type cards. And then if you're trying to build synergy around a specific keyword, then that's always going to be there. So we're going to kind of run through them all to give you an idea of what new depth they've added to the game, which previously had none. So fuel, if there is an attached support card, you may discard it to trigger this effect. So again, basically maybe the support is no longer useful, but the fuel effect is way better. Maybe kind of a push your luck type thing. Ash is if X player has X number of cards in their discard pile, trigger this effect. So basically, only at a certain timing or like number of stages into the game will this happen. And then burn, which is a status effect. Target opponent's board spot gets -2 power level. Grass. We can watch the grass grow. Effect triggers once at the start of your next turn before you draw a card. Decay, status effect. After each combat, reduce target VTuber's power level by X. And then feed, so +1 power level to a different VTuber. This buff gets discarded after combat. So you can kind of see sort of synergies emerging a little bit with the different color keywords. But let's move on to the next one. We've got platinum. So chain, when placed next to a matching element, trigger the effect once. So the VTubers backstage care about what VTubers that they are next to because it will, influence things like chain, which is different from the Pokemon TCG bench, where all of the Pokemon on the bench are agnostic to all the other Pokemon on the bench, which I think is good. It's good that this is at least differentiating itself in some way from a game that feels like they've stolen nearly everything from at this point. Ballstar, the next time your opponent affects this VTuber, cancel the effect done to this VTuber. It's like a one-time shield kind of a thing. And then coin pile starts at 0, +1 to coin pile each time it triggers. Coins are lost after combat, spent on specific card effects. This is adding a whole currency system to a specific thing. It feels like you have to play a whole coin pile deck, otherwise it's not going to have any value, but again, until we see this kind of thing be played, it's hard to tell. Electric, where we have Jolt, where it triggers if it's the first card you play in a turn. Positive and negative. So positive triggers if it's in the active spot, negative triggers if it's backstage. I think this is possibly a more interesting one, where the choices that you make as to where you're playing something or if you're going to retreat into something becomes more dynamic. Circuit triggers if you have both a positive and a negative on the board. So again, this is a synergy for playing more electric things. And then Aftershock, which triggers at the end of your next turn. So some of these things do have emerging synergies, and some of it is just play lots of this one keyword, which is a bit shit. That's a deck auto build, and that's not really very fun. But at least positive, negative, and circuit, you can see that they have a thing where they're starting to work together. And the last one is water. So tide, low tide, first 1 to 3 before combat, and then high tide is 4 to 6 turns before combat. So there's 6 turns before combat, it starts automatically. Low tide is the first half, high tide is the second half, and the effects will trigger differently based on what tide it is. Submerge is a status effect, prevents new ally cards from attaching to this VTuber, and Undertow, where you force an opponent's card to lock or tap without triggering its effect. So you can feel a little bit more like a control archetype with those last 2 keywords. So they've added some complexity to the game. They've gone and they've redesigned all the cards. Nearly all the cards have different text on it. But what's my first impressions looking at this? Well, let's kind of run through it. It feels like the first design of the V-Card TCG, they had never played a trading card game before, and they made something. They made something that really wasn't a competitive card game, made something that really couldn't be a trading card game beyond, the collectible nature of it. Like it didn't actually have any dispersal of resources or certain cards. The rarity actually mattered with what you were trying to build the deck and stuff like that. None of that was kind of there. Now they've added some more complexity to the gameplay, but it feels like that person, that same guy who had never played a trading card game before, has now only played the Pokemon TCG and then made a gigantic update to the thing. So congrats, I guess. They're developing their skill set and they've played one other card game. But is that enough to save this whole project? My other gripe, which was like from minute 0 until now, power level 9 and power level 10 still have no abilities. Why would I, like, evolving into, again, evolving keyword, into power level 9 draws you 1 card, and then evolving into power level 10 draws you 2 cards. So beyond just having extra cards, you don't care. It's bad for you. The being power level 8 and having an ability most of the time should be better than being power level 9. So unless if you have 9 and 10, or a way to find 9 and 10 and play them, it seems really bad. Like you would just never do that. Or unless it's like a lock effect, or it's like had its ability and it's done, and then you go, okay, well now here's my 9 or something. It feels silly. If you have a look at the Pokemon TCG, the stage 2, or in this case power level 10, is always the best, and if something knows that it's going to have a stage 2, then it's designed in such a way where the stage 2 is the most powerful part, because the trade-off of actually making it there is it's more powerful than any previous stage. So it seems like an insane design fumble to disincentivize you from doing it, but then being like, no, you'll draw 2 cards. Sure, I'll play a support that draws me 2 cards. Why would I bother removing my ability from the game? But also from a more management, more manufacturing standpoint, they've just redesigned the whole game. Pretty much every card is unique and different. Why would you sell booster boxes of the entire game that you've not play tested, or you've not had a designer, like a real designer, be involved in, or you've not done market testing or played it with people or whatever? It just feels like they've put way too much money behind an idea that they don't have a skill set for. And so people that actually are in the profession, like myself, and make games for a living, it hurts. It hurts to see something get so much support. I would love to make a game that's got 60 fucking VTubers behind it saying this is the coolest shit I've ever been involved with. Please spend all of your money buying my half-naked character art. That would be great. I'd love to be that guy. But also I would love to be proud of creating a product that lots of people are playing. And this guy can't be both. And I'm sorry to say it. And in my head, I've made 3 videos on this topic. In my head, I'm like, but Keith, what if any person involved in this project is upset with you? And they say, well, why don't you make a good game? And I go, but wait a minute, I've done that. I have made a good game. I could have made this, but better. And I'm not even that skilled in the field compared to a lot of other people that work on this professionally. Me, some nobody, some 600 subscriber Andy on YouTube, talking shit, could have done a better job. Then why does the company that's funneling thousands of dollars into this arguably had thousands of dollars from the original pre-order that people put money into, and could have hired a guy better than the guy that they have, who's clearly only played a second card game now, not including V-card, to solve the problem? And then all the time wasted on additional rounds of redesigning all of the cards and stuff. But also, cast your mind back. How long ago did the first set come out to then receive negative criticism, to then have this second set coming out now at the end of March? How much time could they have spent on it? How much time could they have spent playtesting and checking and looking at stuff and getting feedback? And like how there's probably people still waiting on shipping from the first set that haven't even got it yet. And now this whole new thing has come out and they're like, why do I have this shit set? Why does this not work? And so basically the final question is this redesign good enough to save the game? From me, I assume that anyone that was involved in the initial releases, spurned, will just have this funky collectible. Or maybe if the game does blow up, it will be like a funny Magic Gathering Alpha type scenario where like, yeah, I got all the shitty misprint cards from the first set. Aren't these super cool and valuable? And no one can get these anymore. But I can't play them in the game or whatever. Or is this just going to become a good game that can kind of save the project? My knee-jerk reaction is no. Because if it's the same dude that's working on the first set and is still working on this, obviously they've got a lot to learn. Obviously this is going to come out and punters like me are going to be like, it still sucks. People are gonna play it and be like, it still sucks. Maybe there's a little bit more. Of the 5 colors, you know, yellow is the only color that seems to have any kind of synergy. Blue maybe has an archetype idea behind it. Everything else looks like junk. So it's kind of hard to sit here and be like, yeah, everything's going to be great when I just don't believe it. I would love to be proved wrong, come in and play a few games and, you know, have them kind of show off what works, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't know, maybe just the waifu ability of it, the collectible nature of it is going to be enough for them to sell and break even, but will we see a set 3? Will we see another drastic redesign and rules change? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's wait another 2 months and see if they have a whole nother redesign and things change and stuff like that. And to reiterate from the previous video, I literally reached out to them the month of their first announcement of the game and was like, hey, I literally design games for a living. I would love to get involved, even if it's just in a I look at it on YouTube thing, and they didn't even reply. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. But knowing what I have made, even the suggestions that I made to change it, could have made it a better game. Maybe get involved with the community more. Maybe if you're, you know, burgeoning into any industry, interact with people in that industry and learn what it's like. Anyway, that's my 45 cents. I think I've rambled on enough about the issue. If you fundamentally disagree with me, if you've played it, if you think this is good, let me know. I need to know if I care enough to actually try and find this out for myself. But we'll see. We'll see. Perhaps in a future video, I'll do a little bit more of a deconstruction, maybe do some deck building like I did last time. Maybe look into what kind of changes I would make to fix it. If you're interested in that, let me know. Because I guess unless if people are interested, I might not bother. I currently think this game is irredeemable. And we all just get to sit here and be armchair Andes and see what happens. We can either watch a collapse in real time or I can be super wrong. And I think either is fine, actually.